Diagnostic Battery Assessment by Stephanie Farnsworth and Kylie Hagel.
Okay, so why and when this assessment was created? Up until this assessment, professionals would use the time and activity approaches, and within these approaches, leisure is viewed objectively as a particular block of time or one of a particular set of activities. So Witt and Ellis realized that these approaches had limitations, and so they believed that leisure could be a state of mind as well. And so they set out to design an assessment for that, and that is where we get this leisure diagnostic battery assessment. And they created this in 1989, and then a computer-based version was created in 2008.
So what it measures, the leisure diagnostic battery helps measure leisure functioning. It measures leisure functioning by having the participant look at statements and use a scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree. The participant then marks how they feel about the statement. For example, a statement that might be on there is, "I can let my problems go when I am doing recreation." Then they would choose on the scale whether or not they strongly disagree, neither agree, or strongly agree. And then by using findings of the means of these 5 scales that it uses, they add them together and you get the overall indicator. So when you administer the test, the first thing you need to do is assess the participant's state of mind. Are they tired? Do they want to do the assessment right now? Are they in a normal mood for the participant? Because if not, then it might not be valid. The LDB is now computerized, so to administer the test, you have the participant sit at the computer and answer the questions. You can modify it depending on the abilities of the participant. For example, if the participant has a hard time reading, you could read the questions and answers, but you want to make sure you don't put any emphasis on any of the words. Also, if the participant can't use the mouse to answer the question for them. And to make sure that you administer it correctly, you can look at the LDB user manuals for directions.
Okay, so for interpretation of your results or your client's results, some things that you might need to know when interpreting these are for this assessment, there are no studies that were directed at establishing a database of several hundred observations that could be used to make a normative comparison of individual scores. And because of this, so you can't apply this across the board. Like you can't compare it to people everywhere. So they suggest that you consider doing your own agency-specific local norms. And that just means that you would compare all the individuals in one area that have taken the test and decide what the norm is for that area. And then it also, in the manual, talks about percentiles, T-scores, and Z-scores for how to interpret your results. It was a little bit unclear on this topic. It describes what percentiles, T-scores, and Z-scores are, but not necessarily how they apply in interpreting. So I don't really know what to say on that. When you get your scores back, you'll receive scores for different areas, 5 different categories. And so I'm going to go through these categories and what they mean and what they are more specifically measuring. So these are perceived leisure control, leisure needs, perceived leisure competence, depth of involvement in the leisure, and playfulness. And all of these combine to make the perceived freedom in leisure score, and that's the total score you'll receive. So perceived leisure competence measures the extent to which an individual believes he or she is competent in leisure. There are 4 different competence domains that this covers, and these include cognitive competence, physical competence, social competence, and general competence. Then the perceived leisure control score indicates the degree to which an individual feels that he or she can determine what happens in the course of his or her leisure. And they take these two and compare them against each other because they don't want people to get confused. So competence is thinking about your abilities in a recreational activity, and that my abilities will affect my idea of freedom, whereas the control scale is more of I have control over whether that is an aspect of abilities, but it could also be someone is they can find what's the word, they can enjoy a recreational activity because they are easily liked, or they can control people's reaction to them, not necessarily their abilities in the actual activity. And then it goes on to leisure needs, and this indicates the extent to which the involvement in the recreation activity satisfies intrinsic needs and wants. And then the depth of involvement leisure is kind of almost a subcategory of leisure needs, and it identifies what feelings an individual has during his or her preferred activities. The individual who feels a degree of excitement, enthusiasm, control, and depth of involvement in his or her activities can be thought of as feeling free during involvement in the activity. And then the last category is playfulness. And it just says that, by definition, the playful individual is free to do the unexpected. That is, behavior is not limited to the normative or situational expectations of others. And this just means that they can be spontaneous and don't feel confined by necessarily the social restrictions that might be known around this one activity. And then you just combine all these scores, and that's the freedom in leisure score. And then lastly, we just involved a personal example. So I took the test that you guys will be taking this week, and these are my scores. And you can kind of see how they've separated all the lower ones, and then how that is a much larger number because they combine them all. So yep, that's our presentation. We hope you enjoy taking the assessment and seeing where you are, and we hope you were helpful. These are our sources. Have a great week, guys.